We're now on Dcad lesson 12D, dealing with a site plan still. And on the previous lesson, which ended rather abruptly, we were talking about dealing with the site data, building areas and index sheets, and we'll address that in a little while. But what I want to work on right now is dimensioning the buildings to the property lines, which is an integral part of dealing with the site plan, because both building divisions and planning divisions in each of the jurisdictions need to know how close the buildings are together and how close the new structures or improvements are to property lines. So that's a really important aspect of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit L for layers, and I'm going to scroll up until I get to layer 24, which is text for site plan, and make that my current active layer. And I'm going to click OK. Now, if I hit T for text, you'll notice that the text size is my standard text size of 0.35. And that's part for the course with quarter-inch scale drawings. But the scale of this drawing is 1 inch equals 10 feet. And so that 0.35 text would be really, really small at the 1 inch equals 10 feet scale. So what we need to do is rescale the text and the dimensioning accordingly. So what we need to do is we need to adjust the text size so that it'll be essentially the 0.35 size, but when it's printed out at a 1 inch equals 10 foot scale. So in order to do that, I've made some calculations for various borders and various scales. So I'm going to just kill this text size or the text window for now and minimize this and click this. So this gives you an idea of text and gap sizes for the 0.35 text. I'll zoom up on this a little bit more so you can see it a little bit more effectively. So as this indicates, for quarter-inch scale right here, it's a 0.3500 text, and gap sizes are always at half of that. At least I maintain them at half of that actual text size. So half of 0.35 is 0.175, and so you can see that right here with a quarter-inch scale. Now, and it has a multiplier of 1 because that's the scale that we normally work in. But when we're dealing with site plans, sometimes those will be at different scales, and in this particular site plan, it's 1 inch equals 10 feet. And so that's up here at the very top. And so what that means is the text size, in order to print out at the 0.35 scale, the text size actually has to be at 0.8750, and the gap size, of course, is half of that, and that's 0.4375. So that's just sort of a heads up in giving you an idea of how we have to adjust the text sizes to deal with this particular scale for the site plan. So I'm going to minimize this right now because I probably won't remember those sizes. So back to the site plan. And so what I'm going to do right now, the text window is still up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my text size now, and I'm going to call that 0.875, and I'm going to try that again. And I'm going to set the angle at 90. That'll make it horizontal. And this is just, I'm just going to type in text or test and put it down here and take a look at it, zoom up, and it looks about right. So I'm going to hit Control Z just to get rid of it, and Control W to zoom out to our full view. And so now we're just about ready to deal with our dimensioning for the garage to the property lines. So in order to do that, I'm going to zoom up a little bit on the garage and the property lines in that general area, actually the entire property lines, and zoom up to that. And because I've adjusted the text, it will also adjust the dimensions, although we may have to change the gap and the arrows and a bunch of other things that we're going to want to do. So you can see, if you look very closely, that these property lines aren't exactly running east-west and north-south. There's a little step in it here, and here, you can see that actually it's sloping. So what this tells me is that on the north here, the closest point that the property line is to the new garage is going to be at its northeast corner. And dimensions to property lines are generally measured perpendicular to the property line. So Dcad has a really handy little tool here called perpendicular to a line over here on my custom toolbox over here on the right hand side, and we want to make sure that orthogonal mode is not activated because we want to be able to draw a line perpendicular to this property line. And so initially what we're going to do is we're going to draw some reference lines to the nearest points of the property lines from the garage, and then we'll use those reference lines to actually create our dimensions. So I'm going to click on command perpendicular to a line. I'm just going to left click on it and come down here and I've checked to make sure I'm not in orthogonal mode. And I'm going to right click to this northeast corner of the garage and go up. As I go up close to the property line, you can see it. There's a rubber band line that wants to show itself. So all I have to do is click near this property line and it draws a line. Now you can see that along the east property line, because there's a little steps in that line also, that the northeast corner of the garage is going to be the closest point to the east property line also. So I'm going to click on perpendicular to a line again and right click to the northeast garage corner, drag it over here, my cursor over here to the east, near the east property line, and just click, and it draws a line perpendicular to this property line from this corner. Now on the south side, that property line is essentially running parallel with the north property line. So what that means is in this case the southwest property line or corner of the garage is closest to the south property line. So I'm going to hit perpendicular to a line again and right click on that southwest corner of the garage and come on down close to the property line and just click, and there again I have a nice perpendicular line to the property line. And on the west line, because it's basically parallel to the east line, the closest point from the garage to that west property line is going to be at that southwest corner. It's just the closest point. You can see those steps in the line in that west property line running along here in 3 different places, depending on how your screen looks. So I'm going to click on perpendicular to a line again, come to this southwest property line and right click to snap to it, and drag my cursor on out to that west property line and click near it. And now I have 4 different reference lines for my dimensioning. Now I don't want these dimensions to be red. I want them to be black. So I'm going to go ahead and click on in the color tools on black there. And I'm going to start my dimensioning. And that's the dimension command is the @ command or Shift 2. And you can see dimension has come up, and I'm not changing anything right now, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I'm going to right click to this. I'll just follow the same pattern by which I set the reference lines. I'm going to right click to this northeast garage corner and go on up to my reference line there and right click to it and pull it out just a little bit to the left so I don't get them confused, and left click, and I have a dimension there. And I can now erase my reference line. Just click near it and select it and hit delete, and it's gone. Now this dimension line, this dimension has several issues with it. While the text is the right size, the gap between the text and the line isn't the right size. The arrows aren't the right size, and it did not correct all those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this dimension and call up the info box and take a look at it. Now text size is correct, it's at 0.875, but my text offset and my arrow size and my overshoot and gaps are all wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up that PDF again to see what my gap size is supposed to be, and that is 0.4375. I can minimize that again. So I'm going to text offset. I'm just going to select it and type 0.4375. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to select that and Control-C to copy it. And I'm going to paste it, Control-V, into the overshoot, and do it again, Control-V, into the gap size. And now the only thing I have to fix is the arrow size. It doesn't want to be the same size as the 0.35 as the old text. We want it to be 0.875. So I'm just going to select that and type 0.875. And so now all of my all those parameters are fine. So I'm going to click over here on the site plan. You can see that it's actually moved the text up. The slash arrows are the right size, so all that's good. But usually on site plans, I don't use the slash arrows. Usually I use the pointed arrows simply because it's easier for planners to understand. So I'm going to select the text, the dimension again, and I'm going to come down here and change the arrow. Scroll up to this pointed arrow, basically the first arrow. And the other thing I want to do is I want to change the text format from feet and inches and fractions of an inch, because usually in planning, often the site plans are developed by engineers or surveyors, and they don't like dealing with inches and fractions, that sort of thing. So usually it's in feet decimal. So I'm going to click on this tab here. Right now it's on the Format tab. I'm going to click on the Units and Tolerance tab. And there's a couple things I want to change. The accuracy is 0.001. I'm going to change that to just 0.01, because we really only need 2 places to the right of the decimal point for feet decimal. It's accurate enough for the site plan. The other thing I want to do is I want to change the format from the feet, inches, and fractions to feet decimal, and that's this where you see 1.500. I'm going to click on that. Now, when I look over here at the new and improved dimensions, that's all great, but it's not showing a feet mark, the apostrophe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with that in a suffix, and I'm going to just click into the suffix there, hit space so it won't be too close to my numbers, and do an apostrophe. Oops. And then hit enter. Now I can move my info box down out of the way, and you can see my dimension has the more traditional arrows, the 26.60 feet. You can see the apostrophe there for feet. So all that looks good. Now all I need to do is my other 3 dimensions. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to hit dimension, which is, again, the @ sign, or as in Shift 2. And I'm going to do this one. And the other thing I want to be, I've made a mistake. I'm going to go ahead and do this one, but let me show you something that I did. It should be freeform, because actually these dimensions are not running orthogonally. They're following these somewhat crooked reference lines. So I'm going to change this to freeform and go ahead and do this dimension. And you can see now it'll just fall to wherever it is. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit and set it. And I'm going to select it, pull up my info box, and use the same as command and click this dimension. Okay, so now what I've done is you can see that these arrow lines actually stepped just exactly like my reference line does. So I'm going to click on that reference line, hit delete, and get rid of it. I'm going to delete this dimension now so I can do one correctly. I'm going to select it, hit delete, and I'm going to hit dimension again, right click at the corner. Actually, I need to reestablish my reference line, so I need to click on perpendicular to a line, right click to the corner, come up here to the property line, set it, and now I'm going to set my dimension, and it's still in free form up here. So click there, snap to it, snap to my reference line, pull it over a little bit, and just click. Now I'm going to get rid of my reference line, select it, and hit delete. And I'm messed up here because I'm in my old format. But what I'm going to do is just select it, and I can use the same as command as my last dimension, and just click that. And so, you know, it was very slight. It's still basically the same dimension, but it's really good to have those accurate. Now, I'm going to go ahead and follow suit with the rest of my dimensions. So I'm going to hit dimension again. And again, that's Shift 2 or the @ command. And just go to my reference line, right-click to the southwest corner, pull it back just a little ways, and set a point, and that initiates it. I'm going to select my reference line and hit delete, get rid of that. I'm going to select this dimension, use the same as command, and go up to this one, and click on it, and it's 11.34 feet. It's all set and ready to go. So now I'm going to do my last dimension, right-click, and then right-click to the southwest corner, and pull it up just a little bit, and click to select the reference line, hit delete, and select my dimension, hit the same as command, and pull it over and just make it the same as this one. And so now we have our 4 dimension points, and we're good to go there. So I'm just going to click somewhere to unselect that. Now this particular dimension is sort of right in the middle of that, that contour line is in the way of it. So I'm going to select this dimension and just right click on this little point right here and just drag it over to the right a little bit. The dimension stays the same, but I can move that off center a little bit so it's not being interrupted by the contour line. Hit escape, and we're good to go. So now we've dimensioned our site plan. It's really pretty straightforward. We've dimensioned it. Often they would want to see a dimension also from the house to the garage. So actually, let's go ahead and just do that. Dimension, and in this case I'm going to make it automatic because these are actually running parallel. So I'm going to hit automatic, click to the closest point of the house and the garage, and pull it up a little bit, and there's my dimension, and I'm going to right click that, use the same as command, and click another dimension, click elsewhere, and I'm good to go. So now we know how close this garage is to the house. We might actually end up moving it over a little bit, but typically because the eave overhang is within that 6 feet, but we're good enough for now. So anyway, that's how we dimension the site plan, and that concludes Dcad lesson 12D for the site plan. And on the next lesson, we'll be dealing with the site data information.